Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a project coordinator for Skilled Futures here at Skills Canada, Newfoundland, Labrador. Welcome to our fourth Skilled Future event of our fall programming series. We are so happy to have you join us today and we hope you enjoy our Women in Technology event. Skills Canada, Newfoundland, Labrador promotes education and skilled careers to youth across our province, so we hope that you gain a lot of information today during the session. Skilled Futures events would not be possible without financial support from the provincial government, and we are so pleased to have their support. I do ask that you have your microphone muted during the duration of today's session so we receive very little feedback noise. Also to be noted, we are recording the session today, so if you are not comfortable having your face recorded, please make sure your camera is off. Should you have any questions, place them in the chat box and there'll be time for them at the end. We will also be placing an evaluation form in the chat box for everyone to fill out. Any participant who fills out the form will be entered to win a swag bag from Skills Canada, Newfoundland, Labrador that we'll be sending to you by mail. Joining us today, we have amazing women in Newfoundland who work in the technology sector. Melanie, Nikki, Rebecca, and Kim from Mysa, Jackie from College of the North Atlantic, Deirdre from Other Oceans, and Corinne from Secor. Ladies, let's start with a brief introduction of you and your role. Melanie, we'll start with you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for taking time to listen to us today. So my name is Melanie. I am a people and culture coordinator at Mysa. I joined just about a year ago now in January, and it's been an incredible year. So I'll tell you a little bit about who we are and my background specifically. So Mysa is a smart, we're a local tech company in St. John's. And what we do is that we create smart thermostats. So we have 3 products right now. And in that, our products are energy efficient and our main goal is to fight climate change. So my background, I was born in Deer Lake on the West Coast, and then I moved to St. John's to pursue a Bachelor of Commerce at Memorial. So during that time of 5 years, I did 3 work terms in a number of different industries, and then I graduated with a year of experience, which was incredible, I would say, advantage starting off my career. During the time I was at MUN, I also had the opportunity to move to France and go to school there for 5 months. So MUN had a partnership program with a number of different schools across Europe. So I was fortunate to attend there. After I graduated, I was an HR advisor with Cal. So I worked on the Hebron project. So I had experience in oil and gas. Then I moved to PAL Airlines. So I was doing recruitment with PAL Airlines in the aviation industry. And then I came to Mysa. So that just shows that you can have experience outside the tech sector as well before moving in.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie. Jackie, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie Reed, and I'm a program developer of information technology programs with College of North Atlantic. I've been involved in the IT sector for 37 years this month. Wow, it's been a long time going. I started off as a programmer. I went in roles as computer support, and then I migrated to teaching in the information technology programs. For the past couple of years, I've been involved in program development, which is a really fun role because I get to design new programs. So I get to look at programs, I get to see what's happening, I get to meet all types of people, I get to hold focus groups where I talk to a lot to industry. And so I get to design and say, okay, this is a good program. We're going to do this next. So it was a really fun role, and I'm glad to be here today. And please feel free to ask any questions at any time. All right.
Thank you, Jackie. Congratulations on the 37 years. That's an amazing accomplishment. Rebecca, to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Coffey. I'm also with Mysa, and Mel just kind of mentioned a bit about Mysa. So I have been with Mysa since May of 2019. So it'll be 2 years this May, which seems crazy. Seems like it was just yesterday. And I am the office coordinator. So I take care of all the day-to-day runnings of the office, but also I'm heavily involved in onboarding and just any employee involvement within the company, and also a lot of our social events and corporate social responsibility. So all of our fundraising and any outward kind of appearances that we have as a company on a culture perspective. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Corinne?
My name is Corinne Penny. I am a program analyst with a research and development firm here in the city called CCORE. It's C-CORE. It stands for Center for Cold Ocean Research and Exploration. CCORE has been around since 1975, and we do a lot of cool things. We do research to make sure that the oil and gas industry is safer. We help to monitor pipelines. We monitor ice flow in rivers such as Badger and Churchill Falls to try and help alleviate or warn of possible floods that are coming up. In fact, we're just gearing up for the big ice flow season, so our GIS specialists are, to use the term, flat out right now, getting ready for that. I am a programmer analyst, as I said. I graduated from the College of the North Atlantic from what used to be known as the Programmer Analyst Co-op in 2017. It's now known as the Software Developer Co-op, I believe. I was late in life when I decided that I really wanted to focus on IT and working with computers mostly instead of just as a part of my job. So I decided at 35 to go back to school, and I've met Jackie because she helped teach some of the programs that I learned, and I have been, enjoying my job and my life ever since.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Nikki?
Yeah, hey everybody. My name's Nikki. I also work at Mysa. I'm an account success executive. So it's a fancy way of saying that I work with our business to business accounts, which is a new area of business for Mysa. I primarily work with big retailers, so places like Best Buy and Home Depot. My background is a little bit scattered. I started off university in engineering at the University of British Columbia, way off in Vancouver. And about 4 years in to trying multiple types of engineering, I decided I didn't want to be an engineer, and I moved to Newfoundland and I did a bachelor's of business administration at Memorial. So a little bit different, but I graduated in 2018, and I've worked in entrepreneurship and small business ever since then in various capacities, as the program coordinator for the entrepreneurship training program at MUN, to also being the operations coordinator at Port Rexton Brewing Company before I joined Mysa in July. So all over the place, but lots of different experience, and I'm excited to be a part of the tech sector now.
That's incredible. And it's really cool to go from like a local business selling beer to now a local tech company. That's awesome. Deirdre, your turn.
Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you from PEI today. I'm the head of Canadian. That's my daughter calling. One second. I'm the head of Canadian operations for Other Ocean Group Canada. We're a video game development company that was founded by my brother and me. We grew up in Newfoundland and Labrador. My brother moved out to California many years ago and started a studio out there. And then about 15 years ago, he and I partnered and started the Canadian side of the company. My dad's got some ownership too, and my sister-in-law. So we're a family-owned business. We've got about 80 developers in between Charlottetown and St. John's. We've got a couple of other remote workers in New Brunswick and Alberta. We have a studio in California. We own 25% of a company in the Philippines with 150 employees, and a small development studio too in Spain. We make games for large publishers that you would be familiar with, like Electronic Arts, Disney. I mean, honestly, any of the larger companies that you can think of in the video game space, we've probably made a game for them. We've worked on pretty much every platform. But we're also focused. So when we work for those companies, we refer to that as third-party development. So we have a contract. We work with them. We might get some royalties for our products as well. And so we might have worked on something like, well, we worked on Minecraft 3DS, Rick and Morty, lots of Disney licenses that you would have heard of. So we work for a fee for those. But we also do our own original IP too, which is super cool to get to do your own thing. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get into lots of other stuff, so I'll cut it off there. Delighted to be here.
Thank you so much. That's really cool. I'm excited to learn more. And last but certainly not least, Kim, to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm a senior software developer at Mysa. I started there 2 weeks ago. I'm so new that I don't have the shirt yet. That's why I'm like not wearing the uniform like all the other ladies here. So I'm from Clarenville, and I went to MUN. I did computer engineering, finishing in 2012. At the time I graduated, we didn't have the like very exciting job scene here in Newfoundland that we have now. So I moved away, like a lot of people. I worked in the Ottawa area for 3 years and then in San Francisco for 3 years. But now I'm really excited to kind of be like back home to stay and working locally. This is a really exciting year for me. Next year in June, I'm expecting my first baby, so I'll become a mom. Very exciting time.
Congratulations. That's awesome news to share. Thank you, ladies, for your introductions of yourselves and your companies. We're going to get started into the question and answer section now. In the technology sector in Newfoundland and Labrador, what does your company offer future women in technology? Deirdre, we'll start with you.
Well, I'd like to think that we'd offer a cool place to work, making fun games, for those that are interested in that area. I mean, we've got our disciplines typically in the video game sector. And I'll sort of simplify it, would sort of be in art or programming or design, so sort of the architecture of the game. And then, of course, in coordinating that, so project management and production. But then there's also opportunities in marketing and finance and, any area that you'd imagine a business might have administratively. Like I mentioned in the introduction, I mean, we work on well-known licenses, some of the largest licenses in the world. But we also get to do our own original IP, which is super cool, when you get to make your own products. And that can be pretty risky, but it is something that's sort of special about our company compared to many others, where you're working on a license that's already being developed and you're sort of being told what you have to do. One of the cool things about doing your own original IP is that you get to use your own creativity. And if you think of it like an artist who would be making and selling their own artwork, so Picasso's doing his own artwork. He doesn't want to be, doing paint by numbers. So that's what's cool about doing your own original IP from a financial standpoint. If you get a hit, the company and the employees are in a much better position to make money. And I say the employees because we do have profit sharing and that kind of thing with our company when we have a hit. Right now, we're enjoying a lot of success with our own original IP project, Winter, that was dreamt up out of the Newfoundland and Labrador studio, and is 100% our own IP, and it's been tremendously successful worldwide. So these are pretty, a company like ours has enjoyed enough success that we're able to offer women in Newfoundland and Labrador opportunities to work on some of the largest licenses in the world, but also to do your own products and to make good salaries, to share in profits, and realize those dreams while you get to stay at home, live down the street from your mom or whatever.
That's awesome. I think it's so important too to notify today, like jobs that do offer you the ability to stay in Newfoundland and Labrador, with so many people of my own generation, my own graduating class, having to leave the province to find sustainable work. That's why I was so excited about this event today, because we can really showcase different programs and opportunities that are here in our own province, so that future women in technology have the option of joining. Thank you.
Can I hog 1 minute there, Alexandra?
Absolutely.
On that topic,
go right ahead.
My brother went to California in 1989. He chased a girl out there, and ended up starting a business. And many years later, he and I dreamt up this idea that we could do this in Atlantic Canada, and it really was, it was an emotional attachment to the region. There really was very, very little work being done in our area at that time, and it was all about trying to curb out migration and to to stop brain drain and to give people meaningful opportunities at home. And I'm going to share with you, like, I called a guy today and I gave him a $50,000 bonus. Like, I cannot tell you how exciting that is, right? So this stuff can happen at home.
That is amazing. That warms my heart, and I can hear the emotion in your voice. Thank you so much for sharing. Corinne, your turn.
So C-Corps is very equal opportunity for women in technology. We have amongst our leadership, our VP of Corporate Services is a woman, our Director of Finance is a woman, the Deputy Director of our Earth Observation Group is a woman, Senior Project Manager in that group is a woman as well. There are several technical leads that are women in that area. There's also GIS specialists that are women. Then we have, women in the accounting department, and our manager for HR is also a woman. We have women in pretty much every single area of our company. There's no team that is completely male dominated. And that's because I recently got shifted halftime from our corporate services team to our systems team because they like my work and want me to help them be a little bit more efficient. So they don't have to spend as much time doing administrative stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity at C-Corps for women to advance. Every time we post the position, it's open, and women are interviewing. We would love to have more women engineers on our team. That's one of the things, that's one of the goals that our HR manager has, is like whenever we post something for engineers is like, oh, is this a, did we get women on this group? And they interview all the time. There are a lot of areas for advancement with C-Corps and for women too. It's a great company to work for.
That's awesome. I did some research of your company before because I'm not a technology advanced person. So I did a little research of all the companies represented here today. And I was really intrigued by the whole iceberg and ice flow tracking thing. So I'm hoping you can share a little more about that later on too.
For sure. Like, I've been with the company now for 3 years, and I am getting a little bit better talking about what we do. Before I interviewed for the company, I had no idea the company even existed. And it was funny because I had another job offer, and C-Corps called and invited me for an interview, and I was waiting for the other job offer to shore up. And I took the interview, and then I forgot to write down the person's name who called me. So I was like, I can't call them back and say I don't want to. I'm just going to go to the interview anyways, and I'll wing it from there. And this other job was what I was working towards when I went back to school. And when I got into the interview and I started to talk to the people and learned a little bit about what we do, I was like, if they offer me this, it's going to make my decision really hard. And it made me struggle. It made me sweat. And I felt so bad to the other company that I turned down. But it was like, this was my job. This was meant for me.
That is amazing. I love when people find jobs that they're rewarded with and that they're meant for. It's just makes your day-to-day life so much easier. Thank you. Melanie, to you and Mysa.
All right, so I'm going to echo some of the comments that were made, but I love that because it just shows that the tech companies in Newfoundland are following similar models, which is amazing. And for Mysa, a lot of times when we talk about women in the tech industry, we don't always focus on just Mysa, but we're just trying to encourage women to join the tech industry in general and be local. And I think a great example of that for Mysa is what Kim talked about and how she did work away. And now we can offer this incredible opportunity for her to work on such innovative technology and world-class products here in Newfoundland at home. So I'll just echo those comments as well. For Mysa, I think same as Corinne was mentioning, it's a very equal opportunity. We have an extremely open and accepting culture and environment at Mysa. So everyone's ideas are welcome. It's a very safe place, we'll say, to fail. So people can bring up their ideas and then they're always considered going forward. One thing I also want to mention is some of the perks and benefits that Mysa offers. So when we look at the modern tech environment that we have a lot of flexibility. So let's just say that someone does have children and they have to do the school drop-offs or daycare drop-offs. We have very flexible hours. So you don't have to be at work at 8 a.m. If you want to come in at 9 p.m. after you've brought the children to school, then you can do that as well. If you need to leave early to pick them up, then you have that flexibility to kind of make up your own hours. The other part of it as well is flexible environment. So you can work from home, you can work in the office, you can work in the coffee shop. So wherever you feel the most creative and the most comfortable for your collaboration and teamwork, then we absolutely allow that as well. One other thing I just want to mention is that when we talk about the Women in Mysa, we did our own series as well. This comes right from our co-founders and our CEO. Noticed that there was a stat on LinkedIn recently that showed there was only 25% of the tech industry was females. And he was like, okay, what can we do about this? So we ran with that, and we did our own series where we highlighted all the women of Mysa and just showed how we all have such diverse backgrounds, but it all can bring us to the tech industry. And then we did a similar panel like we're doing today. So that definitely encourages more women to join with us.
That's amazing. Thank you, Melanie. Speaking of
I caught
backgrounds
that
too.
panel. I'm sorry to cut in, but I caught that background on LinkedIn, and I thought that it was really amazing to see such a strong representation of women at that company.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And I think it's amazing what you said as well about how many females you have and a lot of your senior management. And that's something we have at Mysa. And we also have 2 all-female teams. So our operations team is all-female, and the people and culture team that myself and Rebecca is on is all-female as well.
I love it. I'm a 90s kid, so like Spice Girls all the way. So I'm like loving the girl power of this call today. On to the next question. What background, if any, is beneficial for your position? Kim, we're going to start with you.
Sure. So for software development, I definitely know people who haven't done post-secondary and have like kind of learned to code on their own. They've had a harder time getting jobs. Like it definitely helps because people know what you know, right? So computer science or computer engineering is definitely a good way to go. And everybody I know that did a co-op program really found that helpful. Like by the time I was graduated, I had like 2 full years of work experience from all my co-ops, and you get to learn like how life really is at work. So for high school courses, you should look at like advanced math, physics, and my program needed chemistry. I'm not sure if they all did, but those are kind of the courses that would like steer you into that sort of program after high school.
Sorry. Thanks, Kim. Deirdre, over to you.
Well, so specifically for me, I did a degree in radio and television actually at Ryerson. We didn't really major, but if you want to, I was sort of steered in the production direction. So it was a technical degree to some degree. It's technical. Certainly wasn't intimidated by it or anything like that. But once I finished, I ended up doing a whole bunch of different things. I was involved in, at that time, which would have been the late 80s, there was a big interest in corporations were doing all these sort of like, what do we used to call them? Like corporate videos and stuff like that. And so that was sort of where I was headed, and I was doing a lot of writing and that kind of thing too. But I worked for Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador for a while early in my career. And one of the things that I really loved about it was working with small businesses to help them advance their agenda in some way, right? Like whether it be with customers or whether it be with regulations with government and legislation and that kind of thing. And I kind of caught this bug for small business. I mean, I come from a very entrepreneurial family, like, sort of generations in Newfoundland. But so yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was more about a business startup. It didn't necessarily have to be video games, but but I did have this real interest in business development. That said, I do think, I've worked, some of you might remember me being involved with Oz FM and NTV, and I also worked with Industry Canada, and I've had a real variety before I started my own business with my brother. So, and I really feel like that's given me a good perspective with our employees. I understand the struggles of young families. I was a single mom with 2 kids, not making very much money. I didn't have a lot of support from any of my workplaces with regard to flexibility or anything like that around being a woman with young children. So I try really hard with the women and men in our company to be very flexible in that regard, and to understand the financial struggles that people have early in their careers and stuff too. So yeah, I think the variety for me has been really helpful. I know I'm not talking specifically about like a programming job or anything like that, but that isn't my background, right? So, but I will say, to Kim's point, we actually have quite a few senior developers in our company, whether they be programmers, designers, or artists. We call them all developers, who don't have formal education, or don't have a lot of formal education. So now we have lots that do, and that's excellent, but there are opportunities for self-learning and that kind of thing, and our company is really good at digging in and recognizing talent, and not just focusing on someone's formal education. So I just thought I should mention that. And I can tell you, if we didn't do that, we would have missed out on some really amazing talent.
Coming from someone who actually didn't finish her degree at university, that speaks to me. I find with myself as well, like, it's really easy to find a job expressing who I am and like showcasing what I bring to the table, more so than what a piece of paper may say. Thank you for that. Yep. Nikki, to you.
Yeah. So my background, as I kind of briefly mentioned in my introduction, is quite broad. Having started off from a formal education perspective in engineering, and then finishing that all in business. And my dad used to joke with me that I should have finished my degree, so I became an engineer and had that like piece of paper. And I always used to tell him that the piece of paper didn't matter, because I still had all the skills that I learned, and that certainly has rung true for me in all of the positions that I've had since then, whether it's critical thinking and analytics, and just having an understanding of all that. Despite not actually finishing the degree, I still have all the knowledge. So I guess the first thing that I wanted to say is just that it doesn't matter whether you have a piece of paper or any formal education in anything, or however your kind of career path and education works out. All of the skills that you develop through your education and any positions that you have will end up mattering later on, whether you realize it or not. But for me specifically in my role with Mysa, a lot of what I do involves more kind of, I guess, intangible skills. Obviously, there's some sales stuff and numbers and all of that involved, but really the communication, the interpersonal kind of understanding, really being able to build a connection with our accounts and strategically plan and all of that. Problem solving is a big one. No matter what you do, problems pop up, and you got to solve them, whether it's something small or big, or a long-term problem or a very short-term problem that you have to address really quickly. So I think that really just a broad range of skills is important to develop across any discipline, and really, looking at your skill set and not necessarily exactly what your title means or says is important for figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Corinne, your turn.
It's funny that people are saying how the piece of paper. There are a lot of very educated people that work at SCNL, but not all of them are working in the field that they're educated in. I have a good friend of mine who has degrees up the wazoo in biomedical engineering and that sort of thing, and he's a programmer because that's what he likes to do. So that's really interesting to hear that out there. From my position itself, communication and problem solving, to echo previous comments, are really important, because a lot of what my job is, while I do programs and set up, I take care of our website and, database maintenance, that sort of thing. I also have to provide support, especially since we're all working from home now, for various communications platforms like Microsoft Teams or WebEx. We don't use Zoom very much, which is why I had a little technical issues when I first started, but you adapt. So being able to communicate and problem solve and think on your feet is very important for the position that I'm in right now. It's probably more important than any of the technical skills, because if I get asked to do something in a database that I don't know how to do, I have access to Google. Google can tell me, but Google can't tell me how to hold a VP's hand and walk them through setting up a meeting with an external client. Sorry, Google, you're just not that good. Yes.
How true is that? Google is my baseline for everything, but you're right. It doesn't sustain to like the actual face-to-face interactions. Thank you. Rebecca, to you.
So speaking to what Nikki said about a piece of paper, so I never went to post-secondary. I finished high school and then I immediately went to work in various customer service jobs. I realized after I finished my introduction, didn't really talk about my background much, but it involved a lot of customer service jobs, working in the mall, which is always a nightmare, especially around this time. But then I also went to work at PAL as a flight attendant. I moved to New Zealand for a while, did some customer service jobs there, and then moved back to Boston Pizza again, and then finally started at Mysa. So I never went to post-secondary. I never got a piece of paper. And I never actually knew that this is what I wanted to do until I started at Mysa. And the girl that was in my role, who's still in our company, is on one of the all-female teams, our operations team. I took over for her, and our roles are completely different. What she was doing in my role versus what I'm doing are totally different, because my role is kind of ever changing. Any projects that we have going on, tackling new projects, the Women of Mysa panel, for example, we talk about a project, then we jump on board with it and we go all in. So there was never any formal training on how to do those things. Like writing up a list of what I do in my role is the hardest thing, because it's never the same. It's never, 2 days are never identical to each other. But after being in the role for some time, there's definitely some things that would help in my role, like any human resources, administrative stuff, event planning, also anything with the communications. Like, it's so broad. But for me, and in my experience, working all of the customer service jobs that I did and working with the cadet program as well, teaching, gave me a lot of communication skills. So all of those life experiences gave me what I needed to be in my role and to work in my role effectively, and actually learn that this is what I love doing. And I never would have, if you had asked me 5-10 years ago what I wanted to do, it would have never been this, because I didn't think that it existed. And it's kind of the perfect role mix of all of my customer service background, all in one, all in a neat little box in a company that's really amazing. So you definitely don't need a piece of paper to find a job that you really, really love and love going to work every day, or staying at home and working every day.
I love that. I really love the new flexibility too. A lot of employers have taken over of the working from home. There's nothing I love more than working at home with sweatpants with my dogs around me. Thank you for that. Jackie, to you.
I'd like for you to notice, though, a lot of the skills we're saying here today is not, yes, we have coding skills, we have technical skills, but a lot of them we're leaning towards what's called the soft skills. Teamwork is critically important in any place we work here today. Being able to communicate, being able to talk, being able to ask questions, being able to be engaged in your job. And years ago, yes, coders were in the back room. Technical people were in the back room. We're sat down, as you see on TV, in the basement with, with my Pepsi next to me and my M&Ms. We're not there anymore. We're out talking to customers. We're trying to find out what their needs are. We're trying to see how we can help them. Every job that you're going to get in the tech side, whether it's in administrative, finance, creativity, programming. Is going to involve communication skills, is going to involve teamwork, and that planning and getting involved in your community and talking to people. That's the biggest things that you learn over the years. So easy. All right.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jackie. Like it really does stay true. Like when you watch any like older movies or TVs or anything produced in the 90s, the programmers are always the people in the basements. But it's so great to see you guys up in fresh air now. Thank you. Melanie, your turn.
So for my position, having a background in HR and recruitment, I did, like I mentioned at the beginning, I completed a Bachelor of Commerce. With that, I'll kind of echo what Kim said as well. With that, I did 3 work with some experience already, which kind of gave me a head start. And also it allowed me to try out different positions. And I went into MUN initially thinking I wanted to do accounting. And then I was like, nope, not for me. And I shifted to HR. So it really gives you opportunities to figure out what you like, what industries you want to be in. So that was a really good opportunity. We've talked about this already, but for my position, I'm dealing directly with the candidates. It's a bit of a shift as a recruiter because not only are you looking for the right candidate, but you also have to sell the company to them. So it's almost a bit of sales tactics in terms of like relationship building and communication. And as a recruiter, I want to echo everything that everyone has said here today is that we have different sides of our interview process. Of course, we look for the technical skills. Oftentimes, if it's a developer, we'll send a technical assessment just to make sure. But our biggest focus is the personality and the culture fit. Our culture is so important to us. So we always run sometimes 2 interviews just to make sure that that personality and that team aspect is going to be there, because we can put you through training to do different skills, but being that well-rounded good person that has our morals and values as a company is extremely important. So just when you are looking for jobs, make sure you really showcase who you are as a person as well.
Awesome. Thank you. That was one of the things that like held true with me when I first spoke to you, Melanie, a few weeks ago, was that you're looking for more of like the personality fit to the company. So thank you again for mentioning that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ladies, for answering the questions on your backgrounds. What would be the most important skill or attribute for your employer? Nikki, we'll start with you.
So this is kind of a tough question to answer. I mean, obviously at a company, I mean, Mysa isn't a huge company. We have just over 70 employees now, but there's such a wide variety of talent at Mysa in everything from technical to HR to sales to everything in between. So there isn't really, one specific skill that I would say would be important. But what I will say is that, and kind of Melanie has alluded to this a couple of times in terms of that, like culture and personality fit is really important. And not only for Mysa, but also for employees. Like when you're looking for a job, it's not just about the job that you're going to do, but it's about the company you're going to work for and the people that you're going to surround yourself with every day. So that's really important. But from my time here at Mysa so far, I've only been with the company since July, but one of our core values is that it's more than just a job. And I've worked for a lot of companies over the years who, everyone has a different level of commitment with. And sometimes it can feel unfair if, you have to work a few extra hours here and there and it doesn't feel like everyone else is kind of pulling their weight. But at Mysa, like I said, one of our core values is that it's more than just a job, and that in every aspect of my experience with the company has rang true, from, putting in a few extra hours to get a project done to, we had a virtual Black Friday celebration last week, which was awesome. Kudos to both Mel and Rebecca for organizing that. But that was one of those, we all just sat on Zoom all night and got to know each other and hung out. And those moments are really what I think sets Mysa apart and has set Mysa apart from my experience with other organizations. And again, it all comes back to that, all of our employees care. We care about the company, we care about our product, we care about our customers, we care about each other. And that kind of drives everything that we do.
That's awesome. I currently have my view set up as speaker view, so I can see the other 3 Mysa ladies just like nodding along and smiling as you're speaking, which is amazing. Jackie, it's your turn.
That's a hard act to follow. I want to go work for Mysa. It's definitely the project management skills and being able to see something from start to finish. A lot of times you have to be dedicated and look at a project and seeing the beginning, but not getting the end of it result also. That's an important skill. And again, we already talked about the communication skills, the getting along with other skills. Yes, we have technical skills, but seeing projects from start to finish is another skill that people need. So you have to have a work ethic, whether you get that from being involved in your clubs at school, being involved in organizations like, cadets, things like that, all those leadership skills that you're gaining from those places that you don't even realize you're gaining yet. So that's a big thing that we're looking for, is the leadership and being able to see, and the work ethic. So.
That's awesome. And it's so easy to learn these skills early on in life. I know we have some members of Girl Guides of Canada joining us here today, and these are skills that you guys can learn so easy. I went through Girl Guides of Canada myself, and that's because the leadership skills I have today are because I was involved in Girl Guides. So never think it's too early to start learning either. Thank you. Corinne, to you.
Being adaptable is a very important skill to have with SECOR right now. I'll just use an example. Our systems team, one of the big projects that they're working on is they're subcontractors for the European Space Agency, creating a ground station to be able to help read satellite data from, well, obviously satellites, but to help manage and monitor greenhouse gases. And I'm probably completely underestimating or underexplaining that, but that's the high level view of what they're doing. But there's always something that's changing because they're dealing with, one, people in Europe, so working 9 to 5 isn't always the option for them. 2, there may be one way that they've been creating their ground stations in the past that has to change because they're now having to fall underneath the European Space Agency's guidelines. So they have to be able to really not get stuck on one thing and be able to move from, pivot from point A to point B, and working on a team, because especially when you're working on this type of a project, if one person is, well, I'm only going to work my 8 hours and then log off and let the rest of you guys deal with the rest of the madness, that doesn't shake well with the other people on the team. Everybody is, pulling their weight, sort of thing. So those are probably the 2 most important attributes, because as it's been said before, you can get trained how to do a coding language. Like, they can teach you how to do that sort of thing on our teams. But teaching somebody, to be adaptable and to be able to be a team player is, at an older age, it's a very difficult experience. I mean, like you said, you went through guides. I went through Sea Cadets, so I gained a lot of my communication and leadership skills through my, time in Sea Cadets. And then when I was too old to be in Sea Cadets, I volunteered with a service organization called Kin Canada, which does volunteer work to, basically their motto is help serving the community's greatest needs. So I got a lot of communication skills and those soft skills that I learned through volunteering and putting in that extra time, which really opened up so many more doors for me that I can't even, there's not enough time on this panel for me to tell you about the doors that opened.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Deirdre, your turn.
Hi. Honestly, I just jotted down a few things that people were saying: project management, technical skills, creativity, leadership, adaptability, team player, fitting into the culture of our studio. I mean, all those things are super important, and things that I look for when we're doing interviews. I think maybe I'll just veer away from the question a wee bit, because I do feel like, what the others have covered is really how I would have answered that question had I been like the first person or something. So one of the things I think that's really allowed our company to be successful in Atlantic Canada is the fact that I look for sort of how will I put it, sort of a mentorship skill. So when we opened in Atlantic Canada in 2005, we really were starting an industry. There were a couple of other games companies that were starting up around the same time, but we were, definitely one of the first. And there really were not people with the experience with experience in games. I mean, they may have had tremendous talent. They may have had lots of technical skills from working in other areas of software and that kind of thing. But we were looking to compete with the best in the world in the video game space. So we really needed people with experience. So we actually did a tremendous amount of international hiring and bringing highly skilled workers into Atlantic Canada to help sort of set the foundation for our company. And then that way we were able to have those people not only working on games, but then they were also working with the colleges and universities in the region to help develop curriculum that fit into the video game space. And then also we were hiring a tremendous amount of juniors, considering that we were operating at a global level. So a company like ours, say in BC, would never have had as many juniors as our company would have, but we still had to compete against those people with either their products or for particular projects, right? So it was very important to me that when I was hiring somebody, let's say, a programmer out of the UK or something, that they understood that part of the culture of our company was going to be working with young people and with students and with people without very much experience to help develop our products, and that I was like fully committed to that. And if they weren't going to buy into that, if they were just going to spend all their time telling me that I needed to hire a whole bunch more really senior people in order to get this game done, then they probably weren't going to work out with us, because I really wanted to build something. I wanted to build an industry, not just our company. So so for us, that mentorship gene goes like right through our company, and it's still there 15 years later. Like, everybody really is very dedicated to that. And it's really awesome, to look back. I mean, I have people who I hired at 19 years old who are still working with us 10 and 15 years later, or are off working for other companies in extremely senior roles. So that's pretty cool to look back at that. And I think it's, I think that, I'll call it a gene. It's like it's in our DNA. We can't sort of help ourselves. We're always trying to mentor young people. And when we don't have a lot of juniors in the company, we're like running around going, we really should hire more students. So we sort of took something that seemed like almost a disadvantage and turned it into part of the culture of the company. And so that's been really cool.
That is absolutely amazing. I love that. Thank you so much. So Deidre, we're going to start with you answering the next question. Has being a female in the technology sector either been advantage or disadvantage for you?
Yeah, so I always find this question a little bit hard because, I've only ever been a female in the technology sector. I've never been a male in the technology sector. So I don't really know. I mean, I also, to be blunt about it, I'm an owner, right? Like I wasn't working my way up through the company. I partnered with my brother and my dad. I've had tremendous encouragement. I've had tremendous women in my life, and that's Yoda, my dog, someone at the door. And so I guess I would say no. I mean, to some degree, there was some advantage. You don't see it so much now, but we go off to these big shows, 15 years ago in San Francisco or whatever, and I'd be one of the only women in the room. And honestly, I got attention for that. I didn't feel that I wasn't being listened to. I felt like people were kind of like, oh, a woman in the games industry, that doesn't happen very often, So I don't really feel like it's been a disadvantage for me. That said, it 100% has been a disadvantage for other women, and I try to be very careful and smart about how things operate within our own company with women. We have lots of women in senior roles, but proportionately, we don't have a lot of women within the company. So we do have a gender parity committee that we've only just started in the past year to try and improve, because I don't feel like we've had we haven't made the progress within our company the way that I would have liked to in that regard. So, there's so much going on in my house right now. It's hard to concentrate. But anyway, for me personally, no, like, yes, I've had all those experiences, but I'm also pretty privileged. So I don't, I'm not going to sit back and say, yeah, I've had this giant struggle, because I really don't think that I have. But I certainly understand that it is a struggle for many other women, and I do try and for my own daughters and for the women in our company, I try to be very cognizant of those issues and make sure that I'm giving them a leg up and a voice whenever I can.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your transparency. I think it's really important in this question to identify what you've said as well, is that it doesn't always have to be a struggle, especially going forward, because we're hoping that women that came before all of us have laid enough of a foreground that going forward, it won't be as much of a struggle for women going forward. So thank you. Kim, to you.
Right. So I'll speak only about my own experience. Like, I don't want to be insensitive to people who have had a harder time. I worked for 4 different companies since I left school, and I've never felt that I was denied an opportunity because of my gender. I know I've been paid fairly because I've found out what my male coworkers were paid. I've been given leadership roles. Like, I have never felt like it was a disadvantage to me. The more I've learned and kind of worked on the soft skills, I learned that, like, the best teams have a variety of people. So I would say, like, for starters, like, if you have men and women represented, you'll probably get some different viewpoints. So I'd say that the technical teams I've been on have seen an advantage because obviously there's already men on them, and then they'll get my opinions and viewpoint as well as any other women like that are on the teams as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Corinne?
So with C-Corps, it hasn't been an advantage or a disadvantage. They're very above board about making sure that, the gentleman that's working in the same level as me make the exact same money as me, barring, bonuses and that sort of thing, which is based on merit, which is completely fair. Before I went back to school, in one of my previous positions, I did have a bit of a problem where I wasn't taken seriously because I was a woman. And it wasn't the company itself, but it was coworkers. I was working at a call center. I won't name it. They were moving part of our company, or part of our project, to India. Because I had some web development background, they asked me to help create an online reference guide. So I did. And then as a result of it, they asked me to go to India to help train the new people. So, pack my bags, I'm off to India. And there were a lot of men working in the position that didn't want to believe what I was telling them was actually the right thing. They would be, no, it says here it's wrong. And this one guy was ready to go to the wall on it. And he said, it says right here on the web reference guide. And I'm like, I wrote the web reference guide. This is where you're going wrong. And I pointed him to the right place. And then from that point on, he was like, oh, okay. And then everybody else that was in that row that had, been like, he's right. You're a female. You can't be answering this correctly. We're like, oh, it was like between that day and then the next day, it was like 2 different teams. They started to recognize, okay, she knows what she's doing. She's done this before.
That's awesome. I feel for you, but I really do love you for sharing that. Thank you. Nikki.
Yeah, so I've kind of had the experience of working in 3, I would say, typically male-dominated industries, from engineering to craft beer to technology now. So I kind of echo what Deidre said. I obviously have had all those typical experiences of walking into a room and kind of looking around and being like, oh, okay, this is gonna be fun. But I've also had a lot of really incredible experiences of finding people who were willing to advocate for me, who were willing to support me, who were willing to help me through those challenging times. And so I think one of the most important things to acknowledge with this, with the topic of being a woman in a male dominated field is making sure that you find the support network, and that, like Deidre mentioned, comes not only from the company that you're working with, but also from the people that you surround yourself with. It doesn't have to be other women. It can be anybody really. But for instance, Mysa has a Women of Mysa group that used to get together for socials and stuff when that was allowed to happen, but now mostly is virtually based. But yeah, I'd just say that you're always going to have difficult experiences regardless of how you identify in the workplace. But what's really important is growing from those experiences and finding people who can help you work through those tough times and learn from them so that you can become better and really not just yourself, but also make it better for the people that come after you.
Absolutely. That is nail on the head for me. Thank you. Jackie, your turn.
Well, you can't work in the technology side of things non-traditionally for all those years that I have without running into some of those jerks every now and again, to be honest with you. Fortunately, nowadays, they're few and far between. Most organizations and in the tech industry, like, we have a voice, we can talk, we can do everything the same. My organization, and I've been supported, I've had some great mentors over the years, male and female, that helped me guide my career and gave me some solid advice. The funniest thing is, like, when I was in the classroom, the worst course I used to hate to teach was Hardware 1, the first years. I could not stand it. It tended to be 25 young fellas that spent all their time playing games in the basement. And here I am, an old female person coming in telling them, well, no, this is the parts of a computer. The first week, they'd be too busy challenging you to actually listen to what you're saying. And after you got through them for first week, okay, they did calm down. So you're going to run across that in any technology career. There's still that little bit out there. But, the thing is people change, times are changing. It's getting better all the time. And I mean, incidents are far and few in between. And we do have a voice, and all we have to do is learn to use it. So, I mean, it's good. It's way better than it used to be. Trust me on that one.
That's awesome. Sing it loud, sing it proud. Corinne, is there anything you wanted to add? I seen you raise your hand.
I did want to point out that because I went to CNA, I wasn't in Jackie's hardware courses because I did programming, but there were programmers, gentlemen in my class. There were only, when I started my program, there were 3 women. By the end of the first year, there were 2. By the mid part of the second year, there was 1, me. And there were guys in the class that we'd have a female teacher teaching the first, and they would not pay any attention. They would be like, I know all this, I don't need you to tell me. And then not understand when they didn't pass the program because they didn't do what the instructor told them to do. Just were baffled, like, how could I not pass it? I know all this stuff. Because you didn't do the soft skills, you didn't do what you had to, you didn't pay attention to the woman in the front. I've seen that jerk side, and it's funny because a lot of them will figure it out. Oh, okay, this person's here because they know what they're doing, and it's a little sad for the ones that don't.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. Thank you. Rebecca, to you.
So from my experience working in the tech sector, there hasn't been an advantage or a disadvantage to being a female in the tech sector. It's been overall a great experience, and there's never been any run-ins with people who may be jerks or anything like that. But one difference that I've noticed is that from being in the customer service industry prior to, it kind of seems like it's a female predominant industry, but in my experience, 90% of the time, my management was always male. So it wasn't really a disadvantage. It was always just a different kind of atmosphere. So there was always a lot of women around and a lot of female support. Sorry, my dog is just kind of up at my window staring at me. So there was always that female support, but it was always a different kind of vibe. Having always male management, they didn't always understand things that you're going through. And now at Mysa, I have an amazing female manager, but we've got an amazing CEO and amazing COO that are both male that just are way more understanding than any male management I have ever had before. So it's a different mindset. They always have, like, it was our CEO's idea to do our Women of Mysa panel. They always have the Women of Mysa in mind and always want to make sure that we are equals and there's never any disadvantages for us. So I think that mindset from other industries where it's been male management is amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Melanie, to you.
I'm basically going to echo a lot of what everyone has said, but I've had the shift, same as a couple of you on here that came from different industries, and very similar to what Corinne has said. And just at least you just need to prove yourself. So when I started with working for Hebron and doing recruitment with them, I was 23 years old. I had just graduated, female, and then I was making these trips out to site. And it was a whole new world for me, but I felt like I was a little bit overlooked because of the how young I was and just being a female. So I really, once I started actually working with them and to build those relationships and find a common ground with them, then everything changed. And the next time I went to site, it was a much different experience. From the tech industry, I certainly have not had a disadvantage that I felt. I think I echo everything that Rebecca just said about Mysa just being so open and accepting. And I think having such diversity at Mysa, whether it be women, whether it be diverse background, ethnicity, genders, it just creates such a collaborative environment. And like Kim said, just bringing up your ideas and new perspective, I think is extremely refreshing.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Melanie, we're going to start with you for the next question as well. In your opinion, what is the most unique program aspect of your company?
Oh, there's so many unique things about Mysa, and it gets me really excited to talk about it, but I'll just pick a couple. I think for us, we've talked about our culture a little bit already, but our culture, from what I've experienced, it's nothing like I've experienced before at any other company. We are such a team and we have such amazing perks and benefits. Like Nikki said, one of our core values is more than just a job. And everybody feels so connected to the product and becomes so passionate about that. Which is amazing. So like I talked about, we have a lot of flexibility with your start time and end time, which allows you to be your best self and your most creative during those times. We also have flexibility in the office. So for some of the students on the call, I'm sure you probably heard about like the Google offices and the very modern offices in, say, Silicon Valley. Well, those offices are now in Newfoundland, which is awesome. It's not as rigid as, say, sitting at your desk all day. We don't have individual offices. It's open space. So you do get a lot of that collaboration and organic conversations as well. You can sit at your desk. We have couches you can sit on. We have pillows on a window ledge that you can sit up and have the view of the harbor. If you need to clear your head, we have a pool table for a 20-minute break. So I think the space itself that we have on Mysa, unfortunately we're home right now, but the space that we have in the office is so interactive and I think really allows for a lot of innovation. We talked a little bit about our social events too, so that's one way we really keep everyone connected. Like Nikki mentioned, we had a social event on Friday, so even though we weren't in the office, we were able to still do, say, like trivia. We did open mic night and had these conversations, which keeps everybody connected. So I think our benefit is honestly our team environment and the people that we have.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jackie, your turn.
A unique thing about the college that people don't realize is that we have the ability to grow. We can take on different roles. They support you in lots of professional development. We're heavily involved with Skills NL and Skills Canada and World Skills. I had the opportunity at one point to go to the World Abby Olympics, which is the world skills competition for people with disabilities. I was a coach for Team Canada, and that was actually in Korea. So they support us in a lot of initiatives that people don't realize that we do. I also get to play with a lot of new tech. Every time there's something new or something like that, we want to implement that into the program, we can get it pretty quick. So, right now we're playing a lot with AR stuff. We're doing we have some great goggles there and everything like that. So we get to play with a lot of technology, and that's, one of the perks that I've always liked. one of the things is that your career, it's your career that you like teaching, you like doing those type of things. So you get to meet so many people and so many students. I mean, I was in a focus group yesterday, and one of the guys, he was a director of security with a company, one of the bigger companies here in town. He said, "Do you remember me?" I had to say, "Yes, okay, yeah, I remember you," because I mean, like apparently I taught him 20 years ago and I didn't remember him or recognize him, but you meet so many people and you make those relationships through, and you keep those relationships. So that's one of the perks about my company that I like. So
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And thank you on behalf of Skills for your continued support to us. Between you and the college, it is second to none. Thank you. Rebecca, to you.
So I'm going to echo not exactly what Mel said, but very, very similar about our culture, because that is one thing that I think sets us apart from so many other companies and every other company that I've worked for. But the way that I look at it is that if I take a picture of my dog, we use Slack for internal communications. And I swear I use Slack like Facebook. If I take a picture of my dog, I want to post it to Slack and like show everyone that I work with versus posting it to Facebook and sharing it with like everyone else. And we've got a whole bunch of different channels that are outside of your regular work related ones. Like we've got channels for home renos, parenting, everything that you can imagine. We've got a channel for it, and there's always chats and discussions going on that is outside of things that are always typically work related. So it's those kind of relationships and that feeling that you can kind of share anything that's going on in your life, and there will always be people there to support you and just cheer you on for outside of work things. So definitely our culture is one of the most amazing things at Mysa.
That's awesome. I love that you want to share your pictures of your dogs with your work family instead of everyone else. That is totally me as well. Corinne, your turn.
Me three. Before I go into the unique stuff about SCORE, I just want to echo to Jackie's point. Like, they are so supportive of the students. I went back to school as a mature student. Didn't think I could do it. I felt like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm 35 years old. There's a kid in my class, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in calling him a kid, but he pointed out that when I graduated high school, he hadn't been born. Like, I just felt like I was a fish out of water. And the instructors, Jackie included, in the programmer analyst program, they made sure that I got through, and I made the honor roll just about every single step of the way. And it was because I had some phenomenal teachers that when I didn't get something, they made sure that they put in the time to make sure that I got it. And they were very supportive after I graduated to help me, get the job that was right for me and support me in my personal development since leaving school. So you probably don't hear it enough, Jackie, but thank you very much for what you do, because it meant a lot to me. Now, talking about the unique stuff that SCORE does. Sorry. I've already talked about the contract that we have with the European Space Agency, our ice engineering group, as you mentioned earlier, with the iceberg tracking. They actually use drones to tag icebergs, to track them as they're coming down, to make sure that they're not going to hit any of our offshore oil platforms, or they get enough warning to the rigs to, batten the hatches. There was a project not so long ago that the gentleman in the office next to me was working on with it's a water cannon that would help blow the icebergs away, so that would push it out of the track so you wouldn't have like a Titanic situation happening. We house a centrifuge in our building that is very unique. It's one of the largest in the world, and it's the only one in North America that's designed to model cold region phenomena. A centrifuge, basically, to simplify it, and it's probably oversimplifying it, it's an earthquake simulator. So they basically use it to pattern soil change with what it shakes. So a centrifuge, a really simplified centrifuge, is like your washing machine when it spins around and around and around. This one is massive, and it's on an arm, and it's something to be seen. And our Look North group, they are partnered with, part of their mandate is to partner with companies to help bring services to the northern part of Canada, hence the name Look North. One of the projects, one of the companies that we partnered with is called Cognitive Spark, and it's cognitive with a K. They have AR headsets, so the Microsoft Hollow Set, sorry, not Hollow Suite, Star Trek fan here. But it's basically a set of goggles you put on your head, and their software will allow you to connect with an expert in a field. And it's not just used for we're partnered because there are drones in the north that are tens of thousands of dollars. To get those fixed, you'd have to send them to Texas. So by using these AR goggles, the person in none of it will put on the headset. Then they'll connect to the expert in Texas. They'll turn it on. The person in Texas sees exactly what they're looking at, and then they just pinch and move around, and they can help fix the problem without having to send it back. These goggles are being used with Cognitive Spark in medical fields and hospitals in the States that let physicians actually see the heart that they're looking at by scans, and be able to look at modeling like tumors and stuff like that. I'm really not good at explaining this because I get really excited about it. And I get really excited because I saw when they brought the headsets into my office when we first got them. I watched Grey's Anatomy that night, and two of the doctors were wearing them. I was like, oh my God, that's what I have. And it's like these AR headsets are amazing because it connects an expert with somebody that's not an expert, so that you don't have to travel, and especially where travel is so difficult these days. It just connects people so from one part of the world to the next. So that is probably the funnest part of my job and the uniquest part of and it's only like a small fraction.
That is amazing. I also watch Grey's Anatomy, so as you were explaining, I was just like, oh my God, this is what I'm seeing. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. Nikki, to you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of going to echo a little bit of what Rebecca and Mel talked about, but make it a little bit different so we're not broken records over here. A big part of our culture, like they've mentioned, is flexibility. And for me especially, that's been absolutely integral. So like I said, I used to work for the Port Rexton Brewing Company, and that actually means that I still live in Port Rexton. And because of the flexible work arrangements with Mysa, not just because of COVID, obviously everyone's working remotely because of that, but in general, I've been able to live here in Port Rexton, work for companies in St. John's, and also negotiate multi-million-dollar retail deals from rural Newfoundland, which is pretty incredible from a job opportunity perspective. And I know few people have mentioned things like the brain drain and giving people an opportunity for these really unique and special positions in companies that matter and that are doing world-class work right here in Newfoundland, Labrador. And the flexibility that Mysa offers employees has allowed me to work for the company and given me opportunity that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So I think that's for me, that's one of the most special parts of the company, and something that I am very appreciative of, because otherwise I would have had to honestly would have had to move elsewhere and not be able to stay here in Port Rexton.
That's awesome. And I think that's incredible of any company today. So huge kudos to Mysa for that. Deirdre, to you.
Yeah, I was sort of fortunate to be able to listen to everybody and give this a little bit more thought. But there's a few things, like for a company in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have quite a diverse team, which I think really helps in creating, if you're going to sell projects to the world, it makes a lot of sense that everybody working on that project, doesn't look the same or what have you. And I think that's been an advantage for us to have that diversity to make products that appeal to a diverse audience. But I think the thing that I'd like to mention that I really is kind of a funny thing. So, often people will say, like, what's your mission statement or what's your mandate? And like, we don't have one. We've often had been involved in deals or whatever where we get asked that question, and it to the point where, like, I've turned it into our mission statement is we don't have a mission statement. And if you look at independent developers in our sector, we've got a 30-year history. We've never lost a company. The very first company that my brother started was called Digital Eclipse Software. That brand still exists today. There's been mergers and acquisitions and lots of changes and things, but he's been successful, and I believe that's because he created a culture of being able to pivot and to being adaptable, and that doesn't work for everybody. Some people need to really have sort of an endpoint, but going back to what we were talking about earlier about what you look for in when you're doing hiring and that kind of thing, one of the things that's really important to us is that we are flexible, and our industry changes so much. I mean, any of you just think about the games industry for a second. I mean, I know you could say that about lots of things, but if you just think about the games industry and all the different platforms and all the different genres of games, and our company was first to Game Boy, first to iPhone, first to the iPad, first to the Apple Watch. There's several other platforms too. And I wouldn't necessarily advise that you be first to platform, by the way. Most companies make money if they're second or third to platform. We kind of have this weird thing. But what I will say about it is that we're kind of like a Jeep, like we can, turn really easily. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we've been able to survive. Most indies have not survived. They survive for a period of time. They might make a ton of money. They might get acquired, all those things. Often it's great, often it's shitty, right? But for us, part of the reason we've been able to survive is because we pivot, and we change our mind. We see our mistakes, and we're not married to things. And so for us, that's worked. It wouldn't work for everybody, but it works for us. So I think that that's one of the things that makes us unique is our ability to change when we need to or change when we want to.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Kim, to you.
Sure. So what stands out for me at Mysa compared to other places I've worked is how well we do at keeping everyone connected while we're forced to be remote. Like I haven't been to the office because I just started. I don't know how long it will be before I am there, but like it's just been 2 weeks here for me at Mysa, and I already feel so connected and so much like part of the team, and that's because of how they've handled this change to remote work.
That's awesome. And I think that's incredibly important too, like knowing what I know now about you being pregnant. Like it's incredibly scary to be out in the world right now with so many different immunocompromisations around. So I think that's incredible of your employer. Thank you. Jackie, this question is specifically for you. As an instructor, what is some advice for aspiring technology students?
Find out what's out there. I said earlier that, we have changed from programmers in the basement like you see on TV, this all-male culture that you see everywhere. Find out what you're interested in. There's so many areas that you can go with. You can be artistic, you can be business, you can have teamwork, you can have communication skills, writing skills. All these areas are part of technology. From looking at, for example, the college has a video game art and design, which focuses on art and design, to the MagTag repairman, where you're going to fix computers, to the programming, to the business aspects, to the entrepreneurship, all those different things. So think about what you like to do, and you can guarantee there's some type of technology that's going to require that. So you're not just limited to one or two careers. And I mean, look at the diversity on this panel right here. We have business owners to programmers to marketing people. with so many different backgrounds in education, like there's so many opportunities. And I mean, technology is going to be in everything and is even getting stronger. So there's no more than that. And come to the college or go to university, got to get education. Okay. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackie. Alyssa just posted as well the Google form into the chat box. So if you have a chance, could either of the panelists or the participants please fill it out when you guys get a chance? We appreciate all feedback that we get so we can grow our programs in the future. And on to our last question, which is actually my favorite question. So I'm very excited to hear your answers on this one, ladies. Do you have any advice for 16-year-old you? And Kim, we'll start with you.
Sure. This was an easy one for me. My advice would be to be yourself and people will accept you as you are. So like Corinne mentioned earlier, I had a similar experience. I was the only female in my class in university. And this was like very noticeable to me. Like I was like, oh, I'm different from them. And like I was always aware of it. And I was like, oh, do I belong here? Like, you know, I don't know. But this was like only a thing that existed in my head because nobody, like none of my classmates treated me any differently or like left me out of things. And the more I got to know everybody, like I was able to relax and realize, yeah, like I do belong here. Like I'm getting the marks like everybody else, you know, and I've made lifelong friends with some of these guys. So it's, I could have just like been a bit more chill about the whole thing at first.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Deirdre?
So this might not be a super popular thing to say, but you know, there was a time when everyone always thought about the money. There's been a time where, you know, the cliche was more about, you know, be happy or make sure you're doing something that you really love. I would say, like, make sure you think about both. You know, if your dream is to have your own horse in the backyard when you're 40 years old or whatever, then, you know, you need to think about a career that allows you to have a horse in the backyard and still meet your mortgage payment or have children or whatever it is that are your goals too, right? So try and figure out the balance. I mean, it's kind of as simple as that. Try and, you know, when you're deciding on your careers, and, you know, and again, you can pivot, you can change, you can do all that, but think about the things that you want outside of your career too, and try and make sure they match up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a ton of money. I get that, but if there are things that mean a lot to you, if it's traveling or whatever, then make sure that you're in a job that has that flexibility. If you know, like I say, if it's about horses or a fast car or whatever, then make sure you make enough money that you can have that. You know, so make sure that you have that balance in your as you make your choices.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Nikki, to you.
Yeah, so I have lots of advice for 16-year-old me, most of it that I won't share, but some that I will. The first piece is something that Jackie had mentioned, which is that you don't have to be an engineer or be technical to be in the tech industry. There's lots of positions in any company that honestly, probably when I was 16, I had no idea existed. Some of them didn't even exist back then. The world is changing a lot all the time. So, you know, you don't have to do a specific thing to work in a specific industry, regardless of the company or the industry. They all need HR people and salespeople and whole wide range of positions that you probably can't even imagine. So that's the first piece. The second piece is that you don't have to be afraid to not follow a straight or typical path. I have been all over the place, geographically, industry-wise, education-wise, and I've somehow ended up here. When I graduated high school, one of the quotes that they used at my graduation was a Steve Jobs quote, that you can't connect the dots looking forward, but looking backwards, it'll all make perfect sense. And that has always rang true to me. If I, you know, even 2 years ago, if you'd asked me that I would be living in Port Rexton and working for a company called Mysa, I would have told you that you were crazy and I had no idea what you're talking about because I didn't really know where Fort Rexton was or that there was a company named Mysa. But looking back at my experience and what led me here, now I get how I ended up here. So don't think that you have to follow a specific path, or even if you're on a specific path that you have to stay there. There's lots of opportunity in the world and a lot of opportunity that doesn't exist yet. So be open to possibilities and just go with it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Corinne, to you.
I, like Nikki, would like to tell 16-year-old me a whole bunch of things, but we don't have enough time. I think one of the most important things I'd tell 16-year-old me is don't be afraid of failure or rejection. I saw a quote on LinkedIn, and I don't know who to attribute it to because I was just flicking through, but it said every rejection should be thought of as a redirection. So as it's putting you on your right path. And that really hit me, because before I went back to school, I left high school, I tried university, it wasn't for me. So I went and I worked, and I had a good job, but I didn't like my job. It was all right, but I didn't wake up in the morning and say, yes, I get to go to work. It was just dreary. It paid well, but it just didn't make me happy. And it took a lot of soul searching, and I had zero confidence in myself. So I was like, there's no way I could go back to school. I want to go back to school, but there's no way I can do it. And then I saw a therapist for an unrelated issue, and they kind of said, if it's an interest of yours, just look what's available to you. So I went home and I looked on the internet, and one of the things she said to me was, make a plan for yourself. Are you interested in going away for school, or does it have to be here in St. John's? I have 3 brothers, 6 nieces, 3 nephews, a great nephew, and another niece on the way in a few days. So being in St. John's is important to me because I like to spoil my nieces and nephews and hang out with them as much as I can. So that right off the bat, I know, okay, it's got to be here in St. John's. So I looked at what MUN offered. I looked at what the College of North Atlantic offered. I looked at what I liked about doing in my job and said, okay, I like working with computers. I like being able to give people help with computers. The other stuff I could take or leave. So there were a few courses at the College of the North Atlantic that, kind of spoke to me. The web development one and the programmer analyst. I went with program analyst because it gave you 3 co-ops. So at the end of the program, you had 3 years worth of experience, or 3 work terms worth of experience, which is a full year. Tack that on to my other experience, and I'd be a great candidate for any employer. And thanks to, the people at the College of the North Atlantic, I went back, and when I left my job, I sort of said, I'm going to try this, but I didn't burn the bridge. If I wanted, I could go back in the spring. And all the people from my old position were at the college doing some personal development training with Excel during my second semester. And I had just been notified that I had won a scholarship for leadership. And my old team leader asked, are you going to come back to us? I think I'm good. And I just didn't look back from there. And, I'm happy now. I like my job. I love working with SCNL. I like the people that I work with. It's no longer got to go to work. I, roll out of bed in my pajamas and boot up the computer, and I'm good to go. So I definitely tell myself not to be afraid of failure, and, to echo what Nikki just said, to what Kim said about lightening up a little bit when I started in school, because I sat in that class and I was, 20 years older than some of these people. And I just felt like nobody's going to want to work with me on projects. They're all going to think they're going to have to, show me how to boot up my phone. And by the end of the first semester, I had people that, wanted to work with me, that were all for working with me, because they knew that what I didn't know already, I would put in the work to make sure that I got to know, or I'd keep us on track at least.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Rebecca?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute button. I think I'd know where it is by now. No, I think Nikki summed it up very well. And I can echo a lot of what she said to that. I should always be open to, or I should have been, and I guess I was because I ended up where I am now, open to opportunities, and to always exploring new opportunities when they come up, because they could be the perfect fit. And something that Corinne just mentioned, that about leaving past jobs open to be able to go back to them if you don't find the right fit. That was something that I always did with the service industry, because you could leave a job, go try something else, and most likely it was still going to be there when you got back. So for example, Boston Pizza, I probably left there 5 or 6 times to go do different things, but I always ended up going back. And that was my most recent job before Mysa. And I remember I think my mom even told me, she's like, well, you can always go back to Boston Pizza. But then when I started at Mysa, I have no desire to ever look back. I finally found where my perfect fit is. And if I had been open to opportunities and open to new things, it might not have ever happened. So I would definitely tell 16-year-old me to be open to those opportunities and to explore them when they do come up, because they're going to end up being some of the best times in my lifetime.
That's amazing and very inspiring. Thank you so much. Jackie, your turn.
What I would tell 16-year-old me, 16, I didn't have a clue. I can say I was stunned as a post. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how to do anything. So, look at different things. You don't have to make every decision today. Get involved in some clubs at school. Take one of those like computers 1024 that you have, play with the robotics. Get involved in Skills NL, some of the competitions that are directly geared toward high schools. See what you're excited about. Your decisions don't have to be made right away. And you can tell, like, every person here has had multiple careers. We've all done multiple things. It's like, we've done completely multiple things. Something I didn't tell you, I started off my career when I was 18. I went in the military because I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. So that's where I went. And back then there was computers back then, and that's where I first learned, because there wasn't computers in schools back then. So, and then I took that when I got out, and I went back to school and I did other things, and then I had 2 jobs before that. You're going to change careers. You're going to figure it out. So don't panic. Think about what you want and think about what excites you. So it's the biggest thing.
Thank you so much. That's been something I look for in my own life, and career seeking is what excites me and what inspires me. And that's how I end up here at Skills Canada today. Certainly, last but not least, Melanie, yours.
So I think, how do I even explain this? I think growing up, the way I was raised by my parents, and even just being in a small town, a small high school, we really kind of just talked about one path, was that you're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to university, this is going to be your career path. And I felt like I didn't know about all the other opportunities out there. Sometimes I felt like I was a bit of a dreamer, and I was like, that'd be a really cool job, but I don't know the way to get there. So I'm gonna stick to the narrow path. I felt like we kind of knew that you could be a nurse, a teacher, business, or an engineer. There wasn't a whole lot of talk about all these amazing careers, and that's why I think it's so important that we're doing these calls today. So I think I would advise myself, like, I love my career and where I got to, but I would advise myself to be a little bit more relaxed and to do more research to find other opportunities as well. Like I said, I think it would have led here anyway, but yeah, I think I was just very focused, and sometimes probably stressed myself out a little bit to make sure I stayed on this perfect path. And it's not, as we see on this call today, there's so many different backgrounds, but just find the thing that you're really passionate for. And like Jackie said, if you have a passion, there's definitely a career path or education to follow that's going to lead you to that.
One of my favorite quotes that I started looking at when I was in high school is, find your passion and get someone to pay you for it. And I think that all of you ladies have rung true for that. It's absolutely amazing to see the passion that you all bring to your different companies, your jobs, your everyday life skills. So thank you all for the passion that you bring and for the passion that you brought to this call. It was absolutely amazing. I hope all the participants have learned a lot from you guys. I know I certainly have. So I want to thank you guys on behalf of Skills Canada. If there is any questions from any of the participants, please put them in the chat box. We are a little over time, so instead of keeping us all a little extra as well, just have your questions emailed to me, and then I'll send them along to the panelists and make sure we get back to you guys with questions. Also, please make sure you fill out your feedback form so we can have all feedback to continue panels like this or do other events in the future. So ladies, thank you all for your time today. Thank you for your time preparing for this with me. I absolutely adored every answer that you guys had. It was so inspiring to listen to. I cannot wait to see where the future holds for all the different participants that were on the call today and people that will hear this in the future. So thank you all so, so much. I hope you have a lovely evening and happy holidays.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.